Hi, welcome to this revision guide for Machinal, which is section B of the component 3 drama A-level written exam. Section B is made up of 2 questions and they are 18 marks each. You'll have 30 minutes to complete each question. So the first question is on the actor and the second question is on the designer. For each question, we want 7 what, how, why paragraphs, although this can be 5 if they are really developed paragraphs. We want to write in the first person, so you are the actor when you're writing in the actor question, and you are the designer when you're writing in the designer question. Write confidently and always link back to how your choices would impact on the audience. That's to say, what will they learn about this play, the message, the themes, the ideas from the choices that you're making. So let's start with the as the actor keywords. I would go ahead and ignore the Brecht column, but all the other columns, vocality, physicality, expressionism, and staging, you absolutely need to know these terms in order to succeed in this question. So if you are unsure of any of them, or if you just want to find out, pause this video now, go through and check, first of all, do you know what these words mean? And second of all, would you be able to use them confidently in a how sentence? You also need to be able to recall these words in the exam. So you need to be able to know them without being prompted by a list as well. So when you answer this as the actor question, you are picking out maybe 6 key moments from the text, and each paragraph you're going into detail about how you would perform as the actor in that key moment. Usually in this question, you get to choose who in the scene you're going to play. Now, apart from about 2 pages in episode 5, I believe it is, Prohibited, the young woman is in every scene. So it might be that you want to prepare your notes on the young woman for every episode, and then maybe you pick another character for the beginning of episode 5, just in case that comes up. It's also common for the extract to go across 2 different episodes. So you might have the end of episode 3 and the start of episode 4, for example. And so the young woman, in that respect, is a continuous character throughout each. You can't write about 2 different characters across the 2 extracts. So you couldn't write about George H. Jones and then a doctor in one answer. You would have to write about the same character for both, which is why the young woman's a really good choice for that. So you spend half an hour writing that, and then you move on to your design question. Again, here are the words that you just need to know what they mean and how to use them in a sentence to access this answer. These are like the bare minimum of what you need to know for this answer in order to get a half decent grade. But then we obviously build on that to get a really successful grade at the end. You're writing as the designer. It will usually specify in the question which designer you are. Sometimes they say as design elements, in which case you can talk about a mixture of designers, but usually it will just specify lighting or sound or costume or set design or props. Again, write confidently and link your answer back to the impact on the audience. So here's an example structure. You can pause this video now and go through this and have a look at how you might structure your answer. Note that we're using words like convey and contrast and create impact for the audience here as well. So now it's time to think about our design in a little bit more detail. This design is really going to be influenced by a number of different things. And so we want to pull our ideas together and layer them up stage by stage. At this point, I'd like you to pause the video and go back to Google Classroom. And I'd like you to locate the A3 Google document where you can write down your notes on your design ideas. There is a space at the top of each page for you to create an image of what your set would look like. and also to plot on there where you think the actors might roughly be standing on the stage. And then below you can make notes on your sound, lighting, costume and props as well. So we've got a lot of influences, which I'm going to speak through. We've got the context, which is on this page. We've got the idea of expressionism, where we can use things like Fritz Lang's Metropolis to inspire us. And then we've got past stage set designs for Machinal, where you can also look at the lighting and the costume that they've got there as well. These are things to think about when you are looking at your design here from the what, how and why perspective. And again, please feel free to stop the video and have a read through of these. Okay, so initially we need to think about the design from the set design perspective. That's the place we should really start with our design overall, and then everything else can be fitting into that overall vision. So we want to create a set which can be altered quickly through each episode, which ultimately stays the same overall. Costume, sound and lighting can be tailored for each scene, but generally speaking, the set design doesn't change that much. This is not a modernised production like Wojciech is, but you do have access to all the modern equipment at your disposal. But the setting is 1920s New York. So in your exam, you're likely to be asked about one design element, but you can make reference to other things to show how these different elements work together in collaboration. Okay, so first of all, let's start our inspiration with the themes of this play. So when we're going through these themes, think about in particular how the set could be used to convey the idea of isolationism, the mechanical world, male-dominated society, a loveless relationship, and corporal punishment, that's the death punishment. On Classroom, there is this resource here, which is a guide for study for Machinal. Read through this document and make notes on design, in particular your set design first of all, and then you can start to think about costume and lighting and sound after that. But this document will really inspire you to create a set design which is rooted in that expressionist 1920s style. So once you've got a basic idea of your set design, which is inspired by the themes of the 1920s and this play, you can start to look at the style of your design. So your style is going to be expressionist because that's when the style that the play has been made in. And this article here, the 9 pages that I've specified, will really help you understand how to use expressionism in your design for Machinal. So we want to essentially not create somewhere that feels like a real place completely, but somewhere that feels like a halfway house between reality and a dream. And it's all meant to be showing what the young woman is seeing the world as, how she is seeing that space. So we've got some examples of expressionist art here with Lower Manhattan by John Marin and Scream by Edward Munch, possibly one of the most famous expressionist art pieces. And then we've got Fritz Lang's Metropolis, which was a film released in the 1920s, which is a seminal piece of expressionist film as well. So how will this style be shown in your set design? We're thinking about angular structures. We're thinking about harsh materials. We're thinking about creating somewhere that feels mechanical, unwelcoming, and brutal in its style. We're also trying to show the world through the young woman's eyes. Here are some examples of expressionist set design. This top right one is a set design for Machinal. The others are simply expressionist set designs. And you can see it feels kind of unnaturalistic, almost dreamlike, but also we've got these weird angles going on in quite a few of them as well. Okay, so now we want to think about how we can use context to influence this design further. Hopefully you're building up a picture of what your set is going to look like now. If not, go back through the last couple of stages of this video and start to build that set design picture. Once you've got to this stage, think about how you can layer in the context into your set design, and then how that will bleed out into the other design elements. So first of all, possibly the most influential for the set design is this idea of the second industrial revolution, machinery and cars replacing humans in the workplace and other elements of life. This is what contributed to this expressionist style, this idea of the mechanical world taking over. So in terms of materials, we want to think of metals like steel, heavy, cold materials that are not very welcoming at all. We also want to think about things like cars. Can we use car parts in our set design as well to imply that there is that takeover? For each of these bullet points, there are resources to help you further understand what this involved. I would have a skim through each of them and use elements that interest you to impact on that design. Once you have that set design in place, you can then begin to start to explore how that would impact on costume and sound and props and furniture and your lighting as well. Going back to this document that I referenced before, there are some really useful pages, particularly for costume, on page 12. It has a breakdown of the difference between the look of the Gibson girl, which was the sort of early 20th century, late 19th century look of women who were considered modest, which is what our young woman is at the beginning of this play, versus the flapper girl, which is personified by the telephone girl, and ultimately is what the young woman becomes by the end of the play. We know that this story is loosely based on the Ruth Schneider murder trial, and you can see in pictures of Ruth Schneider that she is becoming that more sort of flapper girl type look. She's got the fur stole around her neck, and she's really embracing that notoriety that comes with the murder trial. So we want to move our young woman from this modest Gibson girl with the long dresses covering her skin to this more liberated woman by the end of the play. Finally, thinking about lighting then as well, I just want you to consider the use of unusual types of lighting. Now, this actually can cross over from lighting into set design as well, because they're visual elements on the stage that will contribute to the lighting, but will also be seen and therefore could be considered part of the set. So the first is electroluminescent wire, which are like lighting wires. Now you could use LEDs to send pulses through this wiring, which we've spoken about looking a bit like a synapse, the connections that are made in your brain. We then have this electrical conduit, which is a cover for the lighting wire. It gives quite a sort of metal look, metal effect to it, and could be quite interesting to use in your set design and for lighting as well. Both of these for me reference the electric chair, which is obviously where our young woman eventually goes. So that is forewarning that her fate is sealed, essentially. And then finally, we have these carbide headlamps. These are the headlamps that would have been seen on those classic old 1920s cars, often Model T Ford cars. This level of detail, if you can go into this in your answer, is really sophisticated. So we're referencing that second industrial revolution. We're reminding the audience that the mechanical world is taking over through the set design, because we're seeing these headlamps, but it's also a lighting choice because you can emit light from them as well. So go back to your A3 sheets of paper, go through your notes. There's huge amounts of resources on these slides to support you, and best of luck.